"I have not been good enough for Arsenal." Those words were spoken by Mikel Arteta in May 2016. He was 34 years old, injured, and about to retire. The captain of Arsenal Football Club had just admitted, publicly, that he no longer deserved to wear the shirt. Here is the paradox that defines Mikel Arteta. As a player, he was the captain of a club in crisis. Arsenal had not won the league since 2004. They were about to miss the Champions League for the first time in 2 decades. The club's official captain hadn't started a Premier League game in nearly 3 years. Arteta himself was the last to do so, back in November 2014. As a captain, he had failed. He knew it. He said it out loud. 7 years later, Arteta returned to the Emirates. Not as a player, as a manager. The man who admitted he wasn't good enough for Arsenal was now tasked with saving the club. And on May 19, 2026, after 3 consecutive seasons as runners-up, after 6 years of relentless rebuilding, after transforming a soft, fractured squad into a team defined by resilience and dark arts, Arteta did what no Arsenal manager had done in 22 years. He won the Premier League. This is the story of Mikel Arteta, the failed captain who became a champion manager, the apprentice who finally surpassed the master, and the architect who returned Arsenal to the summit of English football. Here is what no one was talking about when Arsenal appointed Arteta as manager in December 2019. He was a gamble, a big one. A 37-year-old with 0 senior managerial experience, hired to replace Unai Emery after Arsenal had fallen to 10th in the Premier League. The club was in freefall, and Arteta had never managed a single professional match. But Arsenal's hierarchy had seen something. Mikel understands Arsenal Football Club and what it means to our fans around the world, head of football Raul Sanllehi said at the time. It was a statement of faith, not evidence. Behind him, Arteta had spent 3.5 years as Pep Guardiola's assistant at Manchester City. He had watched genius at work from the closest possible seat. But watching and doing are not the same thing. The risk was enormous. The doubters were everywhere. And Arteta's first seasons did nothing to silence them. He won the FA Cup in his first campaign, a bright spot in a storm. But Arsenal finished 8th, then 8th again. The following season, the club missed European competition entirely for the first time in 25 years. But the board did something remarkable. They stuck with him. When Arteta later revealed that he questioned himself during those dark days, the club never wavered. They trusted the process before the process had delivered anything. That trust, that willingness to endure short-term pain for long-term gain, would be rewarded. But first, things had to get much worse. To understand how Arteta transformed Arsenal, you have to understand the state he inherited and the state he refused to accept. August 28, 2021. Manchester City 5, Arsenal 0. The defeat left Arsenal bottom of the Premier League table with 3 straight losses to open the season, something that hadn't happened since 1954. The atmosphere at the Emirates was toxic. The fans were divided. And Arteta was under serious pressure. He is beyond a good manager. Trust him, and he will do a good job, Guardiola said in Arteta's defense. But even the most loyal supporters were starting to waver. Then came Mesut Ozil, the former Arsenal playmaker, frozen out by Arteta for what the manager called a lack of discipline, posted a sarcastic message on social media. Trust the process. The irony was cutting. The mockery was public. But Arteta did not flinch. He began the difficult work of building a new culture at the club. That meant instilling discipline, non-negotiable discipline. It meant reshaping the squad. It meant getting rid of players who were viewed as destabilizing, like Ozil and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. For me, the standards you need to play for this club, it cannot be 8 out of 10, Arteta had said as a player. It has to be 10 out of 10. As a manager, he demanded exactly that. And those who could not meet his standards were shown the door. The process was painful. The results were slow. But the foundation was being laid, brick by brick, in the image of its obsessive architect. Let me take you back to the moment that revealed Arteta's philosophy, and it has nothing to do with tactics. In the early years of his tenure, Arteta placed his trust in youth to revive Arsenal's fortunes. Bukayo Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe were promoted from the academy to the first team. An 18-year-old Gabriel Martinelli arrived from Brazil. Another 18-year-old William Saliba joined from France and was initially loaned out. Arteta honed these youngsters into top-class Premier League players. He gave them responsibility, he gave them belief, and he gave them a system that maximized their strengths. But as Arsenal grew, Arteta realized that youth alone would not be enough. To make the final step, the club needed to buy slightly older, elite-level players. Declan Rice arrived in 2023 for a reported £105 million, then a British record fee. Victor Gyökeres and Ebereki Eze were signed for a combined price of around $160 million last summer. The signings were not cheap. They were not young projects. They were proven winners. And with them came increased pressure on Arteta. He needed an immediate return. But Arteta also understood that winning is not just about talent. It is about attitude. And he deployed unorthodox methods to instill the right mentality. A professional pickpocket was reportedly hired for a pre-season dinner. The thief took items from players, highlighting the need for them to be alert at all times. Arteta brought a light bulb into the locker room ahead of one game, linking it to his demand for the team to shine. Just weeks before the title was secured, TikTok videos featuring fan chants were played on big screens during practice sessions. These methods invited ridicule from outside, but inside the dressing room, they worked. Arteta was not just building a team, he was forging a brotherhood. Now, let me show you the evidence, because the numbers tell the story of a manager who finally got it right. The near misses. 2022-23, Arsenal led the title race for most of the season. Then, a springtime slump. Manchester City caught them. The trophy slipped away. 2023-24, Arsenal went toe-to-toe with City again. This time, they missed out on the final day. 2024-25, Liverpool took the crown. Arsenal finished third. 3 consecutive seasons as runners-up. 3 years of being called nearly men, even chokers by pundits. But Arteta kept believing, and the club's management kept investing. The breakthrough, 2025-26. 82 points in 38 matches. For clear of Manchester City. The best defensive record in the league. Just 26 goals conceded in 37 games. 19 clean sheets for David Raya, his 3rd consecutive Golden Glove. 18 goals from corners, a Premier League record. Arsenal was no longer just a pretty passing team. They had become ugly, pragmatic, ruthless. One pundit said Arsenal would be the ugliest Premier League champions. Neither Arteta nor the fans cared. You have got to find ways of winning. That's part of the job, his former Everton manager David Moyes said. You can play as good as you like, but winning is the thing that really matters. On May 19, 2026, Manchester City drew 1-1 with Bournemouth. Arsenal's 22-year wait for the Premier League title was over. Arteta watched the match with bated breath. Before the game, he said, "I will be a passionate Bournemouth fan for a few hours." His fellow Spaniard, Bournemouth manager Andoni Iraola, delivered the best possible gift. The apprentice had finally surpassed the master. Arteta had stepped out of Guardiola's shadow. This is where the story turns from triumph to perspective. Because Arteta's journey was never inevitable. It was never smooth, and it was never guaranteed. "I have been upset with myself," he said as a player, "when you can't get it right. For me, to play at this club, you have to be the best in your position. When you lose that, I think you should be away from this place." That honesty, that brutal self-assessment, is what drove him as a manager. He demanded 10 out of 10 from his players because he had demanded 10 out of 10 from himself. But the complication of Arteta's tenure is that his methods did not always work. He was too rigid for some, too demanding, too obsessed with control. Yet, in the end, that obsession was his greatest weapon. Today, they jump to the keeper and jump on everything, Guardiola said in September, describing how the Premier League had changed. Many clubs are going that way, in the long balls, second balls, and being so aggressive. Arteta adapted faster than his mentor. He embraced the chaos. He mastered the dark arts. And when the final whistle blew at Bournemouth, the man who once admitted he wasn't good enough for Arsenal had become a champion. May 19, 2026. Arsenal are Premier League champions. The scenes outside the Emirates Stadium are chaos, the good kind. Thousands of fans gather late into the night, celebrating a title that had eluded the club for 22 years. Arteta, at 44 years and 54 days old, becomes the 3rd youngest manager in Premier League history to win the title, behind only Jose Mourinho. He is the youngest manager in Arsenal history to win the league, surpassing George Graham by 124 days. He is the first former Arsenal captain to lead the club to a top-flight championship as a manager. And he is only the 2nd person to feature in the Premier League as a player and go on to win it as a manager, joining Roberto Mancini. But the numbers do not capture the man. In the years of darkness, the 5-0 defeat to City, the Ozil taunts, the near misses, Arteta never wavered. He kept believing. He kept building. He kept trusting the process. When it comes to chaos, I want to be the best. When it comes to positional attack, the best. When it comes to low blocks, the best, Arteta said in October. That's the eagerness to constantly find ways to develop your team, to evolve your team, and to give your players more tools to be unpredictable and especially more efficient. The apprentice had not just matched the master. He had redefined what success looks like. And the story is not over. Arsenal will face Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League final on May 30th, a chance to complete a historic double. The failed captain who rebuilt the club from the ashes is now one game away from European glory. Here is what I want you to take away from this story. Mikel Arteta did not inherit a dynasty. He built one from rubble. He took a club that had lost its identity, its discipline, and its connection to its fans, and he gave it back everything. We need to ignite the atmosphere so they can play every single ball with us because it makes such a difference, he said. And he did. He personally chose the song, North London Forever, as a stirring pre-match anthem. He made the fans feel like part of the team again. He transformed Arsenal from a soft touch into a team that could win ugly, 1-0 on 8 occasions, 8 wins by a single goal. He mastered the dark arts that champions require. He stepped out of Guardiola's shadow and proved that the disciple could become the master. You have seen Mikel over a few years. He has got dark arts like we have all had to have at different times because you are desperate for your team to win, David Moyes said. You have got to find ways of winning. That's part of the job. The player who once said he wasn't good enough for Arsenal is now the manager who delivered the club's first league title in 22 years. He is the captain who failed and the champion who succeeded, the apprentice who surpassed the master, the architect who rebuilt a fallen empire. So here's my question to you. Was Mikel Arteta's journey from failed captain to title-winning manager the greatest redemption story in Premier League history? And can he complete the double by beating PSG in the Champions League final? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of football's most remarkable managerial transformations, the story of a man who refused to give up on his dream, subscribe to the channel for more stories from the beautiful game. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.